Carrie. Hi, Livy. So, back to the Enchanted Wood. And if you remember yesterday, they'd had a busy time, hadn't they? They'd been to have tea with Moonface and Silky and had toffee shop biscuits. Remember those? They sound fun. And then today they are going to go to the land of Take What You Want. So, here we go. The next day was fine. The children helped their mother to clean the whole house down, and Joe proudly brought in some peas and lettuces from the garden, which he'd grown himself. Mummy was very pleased. You can go after lunch by yourselves if you like. You've been very good today. The children looked at one another with glee. Just what they'd hoped. Goody good. Come on, said Joe after lunch. We won't waste any time. What about tea, said Bessie. Ought we take something with us? I should think we can get tea all right from the land of Take What You Want, said Joe with a grin. So they all ran off, waving goodbye to Mummy. They were soon in the Enchanted Wood, hearing the trees whispering secretly to one another. Wish, wisha, wish, wisha, wish, wisha. Can you do that? Wish, wisha, wish, wisha, wish, wisha. They ran through the bushes and trees to the faraway tree, and up they went. When they passed the window of the angry pixie, Joe peeped in, just for fun. But he was sorry he did, for the angry pixie was there, and he threw a basin of soup all over Joe. Oh, said Joe in dismay, as he saw his shirt all splashed with soup. You wicked pixie! The angry pixie went off into peals of delighted laughter and banged his window shut. Pooh! Do you smell? You do smell of onions now, Joe, said Bessie, wrinkling up her nose. I hope the smell soon goes off. Joe wiped himself down with his handkerchief. He said to himself that one day he would pay the angry pixie back. Come on, said Fanny impatiently. We'll never get there. They passed the barn owl's door and saw him sitting inside, fast asleep. They came to Silky's little yellow door too, but she wasn't in. There was a note pinned on her door which said, Out, back soon. She must be with Moonface, said Joe. Now just look out for Dame Washalot's water, everyone. It was a good thing he reminded them, for not long after that, a fine waterfall of soapy suds came pouring down. Fanny screamed and dodged, and so did Bessie. Joe got some on his shirt, and he was very cross. Never mind, said Fanny with a giggle. It will wash off some of the onion soup, Joe. They went on up and came to Mr. What's-his-name's. He was, as usual, sitting in a deck chair, fast asleep with his mouth open. And beside him, also fast asleep, was the old saucepan man, looking most uncomfortable, draped round, as usual, with his saucepans and kettles. Don't wake them, whispered Joe. We'd better not stop and talk. So they crept on by, but as they got to the next branch, the saucepan man woke up. He sniffed hard and poked Mr. What's-his-name. What's the matter, said his friend. Can you smell onions? Asked the saucepan man. I distinctly smell them. Do you suppose the faraway tree is growing onions anywhere near to us? I love onion soup. Joe and the girls laughed till they cried. It's the onion soup on your shirt that the saucepan man smelt, said Bessie. My goodness, they'll spend all afternoon looking for onions growing on the faraway tree. They left the two funny old men and went climbing up, and they got nicely caught by Dame Washalot's second lot of water. She was doing a great deal of washing that day, and she emptied a big wash tub down just as the three children were nearly underneath. Slissy sloshy, slishy sloshy, slishy sloshy. Ooh, can you say that? Slishy sloshy, slishy sloshy. The water came pouring down and soaked all the children. They gasped and shook themselves like dogs. Quick, said Joe, we will go as fast as we can to Moonface's house and borrow some towels from him. This is dreadful. They arrived at Moonface's at last. Old Moonface and Silky rushed out to hug them, but when they saw how dripping wet the children were, they stopped in surprise. Is it raining? Said Moonface. Have you had a bath in your clothes? Asked Silky. No, it's just Dame Washalot's water as usual, said Joe crossly. We dodged the first lot, but we got well caught by the second lot. Can you lend us towels? Moonface grinned and pulled some towels out of his curved cupboard. As the children rubbed themselves down, Moonface told them all about the land of Take What You Want. It's a marvellous land, he said. You are allowed to wander all over it and take whatever you want for yourselves without paying a penny. Everyone goes there if they can. Do come and visit it with me and Silky. Is it quite safe? Asked Joe, rubbing his hair dry. Oh yes, said Silky. The only thing is we must be careful not to stay there too long, in case it leaves the faraway tree and we can't get down. Oh, excuse me. But Moonface says he will sit by the ladder and give a loud whistle if he sees any of the land moving away. Good, said Joe. Well, there are plenty of things we want, so let's go now, shall we? They all climbed up to the topmost branch to the great white cloud. The ladder led through the hole, as usual, to the land above. One by one they climbed it and stood in the strange country above the magic cloud. It was indeed strange. It was simply crowded with things and people. It was difficult to move about. Animals of all kinds wandered here and there. Sacks of all sorts of things, from gold to potatoes, stood about. Stalls of the most wonderful vegetables and fruit were everywhere. And even such things... I don't know why I'm yawning, children. And even such things as chairs and tables were to be found, waiting for anyone to take them. Good gracious, said Joe. Can we really take anything we want? Anything, said Moonface, settling himself down by the ladder in the cloud. Look at those gnomes over there. They mean to take all the gold they can find. The children looked where Moonface was pointing. Sure enough, there were 4 gnomes hauling at all the sacks of gold in sight. One by one they staggered off to the ladder with them and disappeared down the faraway tree. Other fairy folk hunted for the different things they wanted: dresses, coats, shoes, singing birds, pictures, all kinds of things. As soon as they had found what they were looking for, they rushed off to the ladder in glee and slipped down it. Moonface found it fun to watch them. The others wandered off, looking at everything in surprise. Do you want a nice fat lion, Joe? Asked Silky, as a large lion wandered by and licked Silky's hand. No, thank you.
There is no active call.
Alexa, shh, I'm reading to Harry and Olivia. No, thank you, said Joe at once.
I don't know that.
Shh. No, thank you, said Joe at once. Well, what about a giraffe, said Silky. I believe they make fine pets. You believe wrong then, said Bessie, as a tall giraffe galloped past like a rocking horse. Nobody in their senses would want to keep a giraffe for a pet. Oh, look, cried Fanny as she came to a shop in which stood a great many large and beautiful clocks. Do let's take a clock back home. No, thank you, said Joe. We know what we want and we'll take that and nothing else. I think I should like a clock, said Silky, and she picked up a small clock with a very nice smiley face. It had 2 feet underneath, which waggled hard as Silky picked up the clock. It wants to walk, said Bessie with a scream of laughter. Oh, do let it, Silky. I've never seen a clock walk before. Silky put the clock down and it trotted beside them on its big flat feet. The children thought it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. Silky was very pleased with her new clock. Just what I've always wanted, she said. I shall keep it at the back of my room. You don't suppose it will stay there, do you? Said Silky. It'll wander round and round and poke its nose into everything you're doing, and if it doesn't like you, it'll run away. Ding dong, said the clock suddenly in a clear voice, making them all jump. It stopped walking when it chimed, but it ran after the children and Silky once again. It really was the most extraordinary clock. Now we really must look for what we want, said Joe. Are those hens over there, Bessie? Yes, they are, said Bessie. Good, come along and we'll get them. Oh, this really is so much fun. I'm glad we came. I do wonder what Mummy will say when we get home. The children went over to the hens that Joe had seen. They were lovely ones, but of very strange colour, for their wings were pale green and the rest of their feathers were buttercup yellow. They had funny high voices and were very friendly. They came to press themselves round the children's legs, just like cats. Do you suppose Mummy would like one of these hens? I don't see why not, said Bessie. I think they're very pretty. The thing is, do they lay good eggs? One of the hens at once laid an egg. It was large and quite an ordinary colour. Bessie was so pleased. There you are. If they lay eggs as big as this one, Mummy will be so pleased. How many hens are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wonder how we could take them all. Oh, they'll follow you, said Silky, just like my clock follows me. Tell them you want them and they'll come. We want you to come with us, hens, said Joe at once, and the 7 green-winged birds came over to him and lined up in a row to follow the children. It was so funny to see. Well, that's the hens found. Now for the goat and the spade. They wandered along looking at everything. It didn't matter what anyone wanted, they were sure to find it sooner or later. There were boats, like Gigi's, all kinds of doggies, like Libby, shopping baskets, rings, toys, work baskets, and even such small things as thimbles. I bet you don't know what a thimble is. You can ask Mummy. It's the strangest land I ever saw, said Joe. We look pretty strange too, said Fanny, giggling, as she looked round and saw the 7 hens and the big clock paddling along behind them. Oh, look, there's the dearest, prettiest white goat I ever saw. Sure enough, not far off was a lovely white nanny goat with soft brown eyes and perky ears. She looked quite ordinary except for 2 spots by her tail. Little white goat, please come with us, said Fanny, and the goat trotted up to her at once. It took its place behind the hens, but it didn't seem to like the clock, which bumped into it every now and again just to tease it. Don't do that, clock, said Silky. I hope your clock won't be a nuisance, said Bessie. It's not behaving like a grandmother, is it? It's a bit of a tease, I think. Now for the garden spade, said Joe, as he suddenly saw a fine, strong spade hanging up on a fence with some other garden tools. What about this one, girls? This looks strong enough for Daddy. He took it down and dug it in the ground. It was a super spade. Joe put it over his shoulder, and the 4 of them grinned at each other. We've got everything we want, said Joe. Come on, we'll go back to old Moonface, and then we'll take some cakes for tea. So, followed by the 7 hens, the white goat, and the clock, the 4 of them made their way back to where they had left Moonface. But he wasn't sitting where they'd left him. He was pulling at a lovely rug which was hanging from a tree. It was perfectly round with a hole in the middle. Hello, hello, yelled Moonface as he saw them. Look what I've got, just what I've always wanted for my round tree room. A round rug with a hole in the middle, where the slippery slip begins. But Moonface, you said you'd watch to see that the land of Take What You Want kept by the faraway tree, didn't you? Said Silky anxiously. Where's the hole that leads down to the tree? Oh, it's somewhere over there, said Moonface, draping the rug around him and staggering off. Come on, we're sure to find it. But they didn't. It had gone, for the land of Take What You Want had moved away from the faraway tree. Moonface, it's too bad of you, said Joe. You promised. Moonface looked worried and pale. He hunted about for the hole, but there was no hole to be seen. He began to shake with fright. I've got you all in a terrible fix, he said. Here we are, stuck in a land where there's everything we want, and the only thing we want is to get away. Everyone looked upset. I feel cross with you, Moonface, said Joe. You said you'd keep guard and you didn't. I don't think you're much of a friend. And I'm ashamed of you too, Moonface, said Silky, who had tears in her eyes. We'll find someone else to help us, said Moonface gloomily, and they all set off, followed by the hens, the goat, and the clock, which kept striking 4 o'clock. But now they found a very curious thing. There didn't seem to be anyone at all in the land of Take What You Want. All the gnomes, the pixies, the brownies, and the elves had gone. They must have known the land was going to move off, said Moonface with a groan, and they've all slipped down the ladder just in time. Oh, why did I leave it? They wandered all over the land, which was not really very large, but was more crowded with things and animals than anywhere they had ever seen. "I can't think what to do," said Silky. "It's true that there is everything here we want. We shan't starve, but it isn't the sort of place we want to live forever." They walked here and there, and then suddenly they came to something they hadn't noticed before. It was a large and shiny aeroplane. "Oh," said Joe, his eyes gleaming. "Look at that! How I wish I could fly an aeroplane. Can you fly one, Moonface?" Moonface shook his head. Silky shook hers too. "That's no good then," said Joe with a sigh. "I thought perhaps we might fly away from this land in the aeroplane." He climbed into the aeroplane and had a good look at it. There were five handles. One had a label on that said up, another had a label on that said down, a third straight on, and a fourth and fifth said to the left, to the right. Joe stared at the handles in excitement. "I believe I could fly this aeroplane," he said. "I do believe I could." "No, Joe, don't," said Bessie in alarm. But Joe had pressed the handle labelled up, and before anyone could say another word, the shining aeroplane had risen upwards, with Joe leaving the others staring up at him. "Now Joe's gone," said Fanny, and burst into tears. The aeroplane rose up and up. It circled round when Joe pressed the handle labelled to the right. It flew straight on when he pressed the handle that said straight on, and it flew straight down when he pressed the down handle. It was as easy as that. Joe flew neatly down to the ground and landed not far from the others. They rushed over to him, shouting and laughing. "Joe, you really flew it yourself." "Did you see me?" he said. "It's quite easy. Get in, everyone, and we'll fly off. Maybe we'll come to somewhere that Moonface knows if we fly for long enough." They all got it. Bessie packed the 7 squawking hens at the back and sat the white goat on her knee. The spade went on the floor. The clock made a nuisance of itself because it wouldn't stay where it was put, but kept climbing over everybody's feet to look out of the window. Silky began to wish she hadn't brought it. "Ready?" said Joe. Up they went. What a lovely feeling it was. They really couldn't help feeling excited. Silky's clock got terribly excited too. It struck 29 without stopping. "I shan't wind you up tonight if you don't keep quiet," said Silky suddenly, and that finished the clock. It lay down in a corner and didn't say another ding or another dong. "Where are we off to, I wonder?" said Bessie. But nobody knew. So you're going to have to wait until tomorrow to see what happens in the next chapter of The Enchanted Wood. Lots of love from Grandma. Take care. Bye-bye, darlings. Love you lots.